Hello.
Good
Hello.
afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon,
Ah,
sir.
good afternoon.
Sir,
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Can you see the
yes,
slides?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yesterday we were discussing about anti-hypertension drugs. In that we have learned why treatment is necessary, whether symptomatic or non-symptomatic, whether it is primary or secondary. Symptomatic treatment is mandatory. Then afterwards we have learned the various groups of drugs which will help to reduce the elevated blood pressure. That is what we call as classification. Then we were learning about the mechanism of action of each group of drug, their advantages, adverse reactions, and other properties with respect to each group. In that we have studied diuretics, AC inhibitors, ATT1 blockers, beta blockers, alpha blockers. Now we are studying the remaining groups. In this group today we will have start with centrally acting drugs. So these drugs acts on the central nervous system. What is the site of action? Acts on central alpha 2A receptors. Yesterday we have learned that specific alpha 1 receptors. Rosacin was the typical example. So centrally acting receptors, they act on central alpha 2A receptors. What is their end result? They decreases the sympathetic outflow. So as a result, there is fall in the blood pressure. And the typical example for these centrally acting drugs is clonidine. Clonidine, it is an imidazoline derivative. This is partial agonist of central alpha 2A receptor in the central nervous system. It is a partial agonist. Once upon a time, it was a very popular drug.
Sir, we can't hear you.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry, there was no power for a short period. We are joining again. Yeah. Can you see the slide? Hello?
No, sir.
You cannot see the slide?
No, sir.
No,
Wait.
sir.
To upload again.
Now?
Can you see now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
You can rise up.
Yeah. You can switch it on.
Slideshow or this? It's okay.
So you can see the slides, you know?
Yes, sir.
yes,
Yes, sir.
yes,
Yes or
sir.
no? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll start now.
In this form or in power big one, sir?
Big one. Okay. Clonidine was the typical drug which was acting centrally on alpha-2A receptor. Once upon a time, it was a very popular drug because on those days, the AC inhibitors were not available, AT1 blockers were not available, calcium channel blockers were not available, etc. At the time, it was very popular. But now, nobody uses it because number one, it is not a very potent drug. It is moderately potent. And second thing is, there used to be frequent side effects because this drug is acting at the centrally, that is in the central nervous system. Sedation, depression, impotence, salt and water retention, they were very common. Then there is supersensitivity and rebound hypertension. That means if you stop the drug, since the receptors are super sensitized for this drug, when once you stop the drug, there should be rebound hypertension. Immediately, the blood pressure used to shoot up abnormally. As a result, it is not frequently used because number one, of tolerance. Number two, withdrawal hypertension is very common. And number three, more side effects. It is used rarely as a third or fourth choice of the drug. Not first choice, not second, third or fourth choice. And it is used along with diuretics because it causes salt and water retention. To counter that, it is used along with diuretics. The another drug, centrally acting, methyl dopa, even now it is used. Now this methyl dopa is a prodrug. It is a precursor of dopamine and noradrenaline. Coming to its mechanism of action, as I said, this drug is activated in the system. Then it is converted to alpha methyl noradrenaline. This alpha methyl noradrenaline, it acts on alpha-2 receptors in the brain and causes inhibition of adrenergic discharge from the medulla. As a result, there is fall of total peripheral resistance and fall of blood pressure. In addition to that, it also inhibits dopa decarboxylase. As a result, there is no synthesis of noradrenaline. It has got again various adverse effects like cognitive impairment, postural hypotension, positive to Coombs test, that is liver function test is interfered. It is not used routinely for therapeutic purposes except in hypertension with pregnancy. This is the safest drug during pregnancy if the person has got hypertension. So this is the drug of choice to use during pregnancy with hypertension. Next group of drugs, vasodilators. Vasodilators. Hydralazine is one, and another one is we'll study that group as a prototype, hydralazine. Now this is directly acting vasodilator. That means it acts on the smooth muscles of the blood vessels. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Because
sir.
slides also, can you see? Slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because here was a power drop. So this is directly acting, as I said, it acts directly on the smooth muscles of the Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What about slides?
Visible.
Visible? Is the slide visible?
No, sir.
No, that's why I'm asking you. Can you see now? Slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we
Yes,
will
sir.
continue. There is a frequent power drop here. Now this is directly acting on the vascular smooth muscles. Now let us see what is the mechanism. Now these hydralazine molecules combine with receptors in the endothelium. They are called NDRF, EDRF, endothelium derived vasodilators. So these receptors which are present on the arterioles, they are present on the endothelium. After combining with that, it releases nitrous oxide. This nitrous oxide relaxes the vascular smooth muscle, and that causes fall of blood pressure. Now what will happen? There is a homeostatic mechanism. Subsequently, what will happen? Fall of blood pressure, it will stimulate the adrenergic system. So when more of adrenaline or adrenaline is released, so there is cardiac stimulation that causes tachycardia, palpitation, rise in the cardiac output, and it also increases the renin secretion, which will favor sodium and water retention. So if the patient has got compromised ischemia, it will cause an anginal attack. So it increases the adrenergic stimulation. That's why tachycardia, palpitation, cardiac output, retention of water because of increased secretion, and it may precipitate heart attack. Now these effects, what are these effects? That is the renin and angel attack. They can be countered by administration of diuretics and beta blockers. Beta blockers, they will block the cardiac adverse effects, the tachycardia, palpitation, etc. Diuretics, they prevent sodium and water retention. Now what are the uses? The hydrogen is used in moderate hypertension. Moderate. When first line of the drug fails, and whenever you use the hydrolyzine, it is used along with beta blockers and diuretics to prevent the adverse effects. And another use is, again, this drug is used in pregnancy. It will not interfere with the fetus development, growth, etc. What is the dose? 25 to 50 milligram once a day. Next drug is sodium nitroprusside as vasodilator. So this drug, when compared to other drugs, hydrolyzine, etc., this is rapid and consistently acting vasodilator. When compared to previous drugs, this drug acts rapidly and consistently. There is no fluctuation. The fall of blood pressure continues for a longer period. What is the mechanism? By way of vasodilatation. Now this drug relaxes both resistance and capacitance vessel. What do you mean by that? It reduces arteriolar, it causes arteriolar dilatation and also venular dilatation. So resistance vessels and capacitance vessels are dilated. So what will happen as a result? There is reduction of total peripheral resistance and also cardiac output. Cardiac output because venous return is also reduced by way of vasodilatation. And it does not cause cardiac stimulation, but here, in fact, it decreases the cardiac work. And there is no reflex tachycardia. So cardiac stimulation is not there. So there is no tachycardia and cardiac work is also reduced. Then it improves ventricular function and it increases the cardiac output, particularly when the heart is failing. How it improves the ventricular pressure and cardiac output? Because the afterload is reduced, vasodilatation is the arterial dilatation, afterload is reduced. Preload is also reduced because venular dilatation, venous return is reduced. And by doing so, it improves the ventricular function and also improves the cardiac output. Now, what is the mechanism of action? You know, it is a vasodilator. How exactly? The endothelial cells, with the help of RBC, it will split enzymatically and non-enzymatically. So this nitroprusside will split and generate nitrous oxide, nitric oxide, which relaxes the smooth muscle, vasodilatation. By non-enzymatic process, also it produces nitric oxide by glutathione, through glutathione. So it is a directly acting again vasodilator. What are the side effects? No, what are the uses to start with? This is used in hypertensive emergencies because we have seen in the beginning, this is rapidly acting, consistently acting vasodilator. So that rapid reduction, where do you require? In hypertensive urgencies and emergencies. So this is a drug of choice in hypertensive emergencies. How it is used? Now 50 milligram is added to 500 ml of normal saline or glucose and infused slowly. What should be the rate? You have to calculate 500 milligram, this 50 milligram dissolved in 500, what will be the concentration, and the flow should be 0.02 milligram per minute initially. Then later on, depending upon the response, how that blood pressure is reduced, you have to titrate. Titrate means you have to increase the flow infusion rate depending upon the reduction of the blood pressure. One precaution you have to take, you have to wrap that with the black paper. That means you have injected into the glucose or the normal saline, and you should not expose that mixture to the sunlight, because sunlight acts on sodium nitroprusside and it will disintegrate the drug. That's why it should be that bottle should be covered with black paper. Now what are the adverse reactions? All the reactions are due to release of cyanide, thiocyanate. What are the adverse reactions? Palpitation, pain abdomen, disorientation, psychosis, weakness, lactic acidosis. So this is the drug of emergency. Next is potassium channel activators. They are also called potassium channel opener. Example, dioxide, minoxidil, penacidil, nicorandil. What is the mechanism of action? There is opening of the potassium channels. As a result, there is leaking of potassium ions, which results in hyperpolarization of smooth muscle cells. And this hyperpolarization causes relaxation of the smooth muscle. So vasodilatation. This is a powerful vasodilator. What are the uses? There are only two uses. Number one, antihypertensive. Number two, alopecia, loss of hairs for whatever the reason. Now this minoxidil is a prodrug and it is converted to an active metabolite which acts by hyperpolarization of smooth muscles, thereby relaxes the smooth muscle. Just like hydralazine vascular smooth muscle. Now this minoxidil, it is rarely used for hypertension, and wherever it is used, especially it is used in hypertensive emergencies when there is life-threatening hypertension. But more commonly, it is used for alopecia, loss of hair in a small area, distribute here and there patches, patchy alopecia. So for that it is used topically, local application, wherever the loss of hair patch is there it should be applied. That lotion or in the gel form, which is 2 to 5%, and it will take months to get the effect. To see the growth of the hair follicles, it takes months together. So you have to apply every day, at least twice daily on the affected part. What is the mechanism of hair growth? There is enhanced microcirculation around the hair follicle and also by direct stimulation of the hair follicles. So increases the microcirculation, that is the blood circulation improves, and will also stimulate the hair follicle. And it will also alter the androgenic effect on the hair follicles. Now after knowing the drugs, we have seen at least 9 to 10 groups of drugs. Now you will be at a confusion which drug we have to use. Now coming to the therapeutic aspect, treatment of hypertension. What is the aim? Aim of our treatment? To prevent mortality and morbidity, which is associated with persistently raised blood pressure, by lowering it to an acceptable level with minimum inconvenience to the patient. So our aim is to lower the blood pressure to the acceptable level with minimum inconvenience. The broader objective is to prevent the mortality and morbidity associated with the persistent hypertension. That is the aim of our treatment. Now there are, as I said yesterday, there are guidelines, treatment guidelines for hypertension. JNC 7, it has classified hypertension as normal, 120 and 80 is the normal. Then pre-hypertensive, diastole 120 to 140, 139. Systole, diastole 80 to 90. It is called pre-hypertensive. Stage 1, 149 to 159, and diastole 90 to 99. Stage 2, more than 160, and diastole more than 100. So these are the categories: normal, pre-hypertensive, stage 1, stage 2. What are the risk factors? Age above 55 and 65 in men and women respectively. Higher the age group, more risk. Family history, if their parents, grandparents, if they had hypertensive patients, if they are hypertensive. Then smoking, lifestyle, smoking, diabetes mellitus and dyslipidemias, hypertension assets, obesity, microalbuminuria. These are all risk factors. Now, as per the guidelines, there are compelling indications. That means these indications you have to, without second thought, you have to start antihypertension treatment. Compelling indications, you cannot neglect. You have to start immediately. There is no question of waiting. What are these compelling indications? Number 1, heart failure, congestive cardiac failure. Why there is congestive cardiac failure? Because of system overload, because of increased peripheral resistance, coronary artery disease, ischemia, angina, history of myocardial infarction, history of stroke, diabetes, chronic renal failure. So whenever you see these indications, they are compelling indications. That means you have to act promptly. At the shortest duration of time, you should try to reduce the blood pressure. So for this, the guidelines, normal patients, they don't require treatment. Pre-hypertensive, no drug treatment. But what is that? Lifestyle changes should be advised. If he is obese, he has to reduce the weight, restriction of the salt, regular exercise, cessation of alcohol and smoking, etc. Stage 1, thiazides, that we will study a little later. Stage 2, 2-drug combination. So now, what are these general principles? Stage 1, where the systolic pressure is 140 and 159, less than that. Diastolic blood pressure, it is between 90 to 99. So start with a single most appropriate drug with a load dose. Single most appropriate to the patient, age, etc. Preferably start with thiazides with low dose. Other drugs like beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, then ARBs and AC inhibitors may also be considered. These calcium channel blockers in case of elderly, because it prevents the stroke. and if required, increase the dose moderately. Thiazides, you cannot increase the dose, but beta blocker, calcium channel blocker, ARBs, that is 81, and AC inhibitors, you can increase the dose slightly. Thiazides maximum 12.5 or 25 milligrams once a day. Now for this treatment, if the result is partial or no response, that is no change in the blood pressure, or it is very, very mild, moderate change, then add from another group of drugs. Here we have studied, preferably thiazides. You have started with a thiazide, let us say 12.5 milligrams. You have used for 1 week. There is very mild 2 to 3 millimeters fall. Then increase the dose to 25. Beyond that, you cannot go. So even with 25 milligrams, if it is not reduced at your expectation, then add another drug. What is that another drug? It may be beta blocker, calcium channel blocker, or AT1 blocker, AC inhibitor. If the patient is elderly, calcium channel blockers are the choice because it will prevent the stroke. So add from another group, that is what we have said, beta blockers, AC, AT1, calcium blocker, etc. Then a low dose combination, that drug should be in a small dose. If it is not controlled, change to another low dose combination. That means the third drug. In case of side effects, lower the dose or substitute with the other group. So that means now for your choice, there are only 4 groups: diuretics, calcium channel blockers, AC inhibitors, or if you want, you can remember as diuretics D, calcium channel blockers C, AC inhibitors are AT1A. That means A, C, and D. So these are the drug of choice. Start with diuretics. Treat up to 1 or 2 weeks. If it is not controlled, don't rise beyond 25 milligram per day. Add beta blockers we have left. So A, B, C, D, there are 4 groups. A is AC inhibitors or AT1, B is beta blockers, C is calcium channel blockers, D is diuretics. Then stage 2. So blood pressure is more, systemic is more than 160, diastolic more than 100. Both are individual. You have to always start with the 2 drug combination. 2 drugs, in that one should be a diuretic. Because at this time, invariably person has got sodium and water retention, edema, etc. In clinical practice, a large number of patients require combination therapy. Then what is this combination? This combination would be rational and from different pattern of hemodynamic effect. You should not select the combination from the same group, different pattern of hemodynamic effect. So what are these groups? Diuretics, calcium blockers, AC inhibitors, vasodilators, beta blockers. So these drugs, they block renin release. Hydralazine, calcium channel blockers or beta blockers. Here, why beta blockers? They reduce tachycardia. AC inhibitors or AT1 blockers plus diuretics in congestive cardiac failure. Here, when there is a congestive cardiac failure, you have to use these high ceiling diuretics like furosemide. Other combinations, AC inhibitors or ARBs, calcium channel blockers. AC inhibitor, ARBs are beta blockers or beta blockers are prozosine. So these are the 2 drug combination. Now with this also it is not controlled. Next is 3 drug combinations. What are these drugs? Calcium channel blockers, ACE inhibitors, diuretics, or calcium channel blockers, beta blockers, diuretics, ACE inhibitors, beta blockers, or diuretics. You can see diuretic is there in all these groups. Invariably, when you are using more than one drug, the second drug should be a diuretic. Then, as I said, this combination should be rational and from different groups of different hemodynamic pattern. Never combine alpha or beta blocker with clonidine because there is antagonism. Clonidine is a partial antagonist, you know, so there is antagonism. Then nifedipine and diuretics, they are synergistic, doubtful. Then hydrazine with dihydropyridines or pyrazosine, all of them are peripheral vascular dilators. Same type of action, same type of hemodynamic effect. So that is not an ideal combination. Diltiazem and verapamil with beta blocker. Beta blockers, they reduce the heart rate. Diltiazem and verapamil also they block the heart rate. So they cause combination, synergetic effect, same effect, bradycardia. The methyl dopa and clonidine, same type, but both of them are centrally acting alpha 2 receptor blockers. Next comes hypertension and pregnancy. It may be pre-eclamptic toxemia or per se hypertension, later on becoming pregnant. No drug is safe in pregnancy because whenever you are prescribing a drug to a pregnant, you should always think of number one, its influence on the fertilization of the ovum, implantation, development and growth of the fetus. So no drug is safe in pregnancy. But however, we have to use some drugs. Let us see what are these safe drugs. Safe drugs are hydrolazine, peripheral vasodilators, methyl dopa, cardioselective beta blockers, and pyrazosine. These are the safe drugs. You should always avoid diuretics, then non-specific beta blockers like propranolol, ACE inhibitors, and sodium nitroprusside, etc. because they interfere with growth and development of the fetus. So safer drugs are number one, hydrolazine, number two, methyl dopa, number three, cardioselective beta blockers, and number four, pyrazosine, alpha specific alpha 1 beta blocker. Next comes hypertensive emergencies and urgencies. Now what is this emergency and urgency? If the systolic blood pressure is more than 220 or diastole is more than 120 with an evidence of active target damage, with an evidence of target organ damage, that is called as hypertensive emergencies. Why? Because already the organs are targeted. Which are these organs? Number one, the heart. Number two is the kidney. Number three is the brain. Stroke, cardiovascular accident, heart attack, cerebral stroke, or renal failure. So, if there is elevated blood pressure more than 220 of diastole, 120 diastole and 220 systole, with evidence of target organ damage, it is called hypertensive emergency. If there is no evidence of target organ damage, it is called hypertensive urgencies. That means you have to start the treatment at the earliest. In both the conditions, whether it's urgency or emergency, controlling that is reduction of blood pressure over minutes in emergencies or hours in urgencies is required. Why? Because you have to counter the threat on organs, that is organ functions, and you have to save the life. So what are the emergencies? Cerebrovascular accidents, that means stroke or head injury with high blood pressure. Hypertensive left ventricular failure and pulmonary edema. Hypertensive encephalopathy. Angina or myocardial infarction with raised blood pressure. Acute renal failure with high blood pressure. Eclampsia, dissecting aortic aneurysm with hypertension. Pheochromocytoma, adrenal medulla tumor, cheese reaction, and clonidine withdrawal. So all of them, they are considered as hypertensive emergencies. Now what are the drugs? You know, sodium nitroprusside. It is rapidly acting and consistently acting vascular dilator. So dose is 20 to 300 microgram per minute. You have already learned that 50 milligrams should be injected to 500 ml. 0.02 milligram, that is nothing but 20 milligram to 300 20 microgram to 300 micrograms per minute. The dose has to be titrated with monitoring. So goes on measuring the blood pressure, and accordingly you are increasing the dose. The other drug is glycerol trinitrate. In case of emergency angina pectoris, glycerol trinitrate, it is advised to take a tablet, keep it below the tongue. So glycerol trinitrate, we can also use it as an infusion, just like sodium nitroprusside. What is the dose? 5 to 20 microgram per minute. Particularly this is useful whenever there is a cardiac surgery like bypass, then what is that, stenting, etc. When there is left ventricular failure, myocardial infarction, angina, glycerol trinitrate. Then esmolol, it's a cardioselective beta blocker, 0.5 milligram per kg bolus straight away. Then slow infusion, 50 to 200 microgram per kg per minute. Especially it is useful in reducing the cardiac work. Then phentolamine, whenever that is a non-specific alpha blocker, pheochromocytoma, cheese reaction, clonidine withdrawal. Phentolamine is the choice of drug, 5 to 10 milligram IV. So hypertensive emergencies, 4 drugs: nitroprusside, glycerol trinitrate, esmolol. Sodium nitroprusside and glycerol trinitrate by way of IV infusion. Esmolol, it can be given parenterally by injection. Phentolamine intravenous, particularly pheochromocytoma, cheese reaction, clonidine withdrawal. So what we have learned so far? Number one, we learned classification of antihypertensives. Then we learned the mechanisms of action of various groups like diuretics, ACE inhibitors, ARBs, beta blockers, alpha blockers, CCB, calcium channel blockers, central sympatholytics, calcium potassium channel openers, and vasodilators. And we have studied common adverse effects of all the above said group of drugs. Then we learned pharmacotherapy of hypertension, how we have to classify and what are the drugs. Then finally we learned pharmacotherapy of hypertensive emergencies. Is there any doubt? Hello? Is there any doubt? Hello?
No doubt,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, then